And for more on this, we're now being joined by Dr. Alan Burstein from Boston. He's a professor of political science and an Israel Institute fellow at Tufts University. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor, on World DNA. Always a pleasure to have you. Good morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Now, Professor, I want to begin by asking you, of course, Qatar has said that they are not pulling out completely. This is just a suspension, and their role will resume once both sides show a willingness to negotiate in good faith. That being said, of course, we need to look at how this translates to the people on ground. If a key mediator seems to have given up on negotiations, at least for a short while, who knows how long it will take for both sides to come on the negotiating table again?
Yes, I think you're right. And I think, look, Qatar has tried to do this before. Already in April this year, they announced that they were going to possibly withdraw from the negotiations and also possibly expel Hamas from the country. Hamas then looked maybe to Turkey, maybe to Iran, where it was going to go. And that was seen as a tactic, and it did bring Hamas back to the table. So very likely, Qatar is trying to do that now. But the other things that we have to consider is, first of all, Qatar is also very likely responding to the elections in the United States. Qatar is probably quite fearful. What happens when Donald Trump becomes president and then all of a sudden he sees Qatar hosting Hamas? Trump is very unpredictable. We don't know exactly what he's going to do. Qatar is probably quite fearful of that. If this does in fact lead to Qatari withdrawal, that's going to leave Egypt as the only regional negotiator. In Egypt, we've had a change of the officials in government. Hassan Rashad is now the negotiator, not Abbas Kamel. So we really don't know what this is going to mean for the ground. Like you said, it'll take some time until things can maybe develop.
Absolutely, Professor. I was going to come to this next. We know that former US President Donald Trump is now the president-elect, set to come back to the White House. He has always said that he will end the wars within a day. That being said, what does the Trump presidency mean for the conflict in West Asia?
So Trump has said he'll end the war within a day. He also said that he'll end the war in Russia and Ukraine very quickly. I doubt that he actually has a plan for how the war will end within a day, but what we have seen from the Trump administration in the past is, again, this unpredictability is really a strategy. It's a way to say, you don't know what I'm going to do, and so you have to listen to me, because you never know when I'm actually going to all of a sudden deviate from all of the rules of diplomacy. I'm all of a sudden going to declare I am just going back on all my deals or anything like that. So I think he's relying on that tactic very much in order to allow himself to have this position that may be able to almost strong arm the both sides to say, just come to a deal for now because that's what I want. What we will probably see, though, is on the one hand, a much stronger approach towards Iran. On the other hand, Trump is not going to want to get the United States more involved in the war. He's very likely to tell Israel, do whatever you want, so to speak, end it quickly, but don't get us more involved. Just don't get us more involved. That's all I demand of you. So we'll see how that plays out. We'll probably see Israel focusing more on Gaza, but less maybe on Lebanon and the region. We'll see how it develops. There's still a couple of months until then, and a lot can change in this war. Things change very, very quickly.
Absolutely. Professor, just coming back to a point that you'd made earlier, with Qatar now suspending its role in the peace talks, there's no denying that there is still pressure on Israel to bring back all of the hostages and to end this war. That being said, do you think this will serve as a wake-up call to both sides?
Unfortunately, I think that both sides have been pressured throughout the entire war. There's pressures from the Palestinian population on Hamas to alleviate the disaster situation in the Gaza Strip. There's a lot of pressures in Israel from the population to bring back the hostages. But we've seen the political establishment on both sides sort of stand firm. The Hamas leadership has not budged. The Israeli leadership, we just saw the Israeli prime minister fire the defense minister, Yoav Gallant, who was probably the strongest voice in government calling for a hostage deal. So unfortunately, right now, it seems that both sides are really held up in their positions. And the entire world is also much more focused on what's going on between Israel and Lebanon. Probably we'll see the advances on a diplomatic channel there in the next coming weeks, and possibly then maybe leading into a Trump administration. Maybe it's the last attempt of the Biden administration to try to do something. We'll see negotiations developing, but with relations to Israel and Hamas, probably going to take a few more weeks until we see any movement.
Right, Professor, before I let you go, I just want to revisit one question that we've been asking since the beginning of this war. this has been one of the biggest questions that arose out of this conflict, is what is the end game here? We know that Israel said that it wants to annihilate Hamas. We know it's pretty much targeted its top leadership in the past few months. That being said, at this point, when pressure is growing, Trump is back in office. Qatar is now saying that it's suspending its role in negotiations. What really is Israel's end goal here?
That is the big question. There is no accurate answer. Israel has only given a vague answer of total victory. Prime Minister Netanyahu issued under monumental pressure of the Biden administration in January and February. The Israeli government issued a plan that was called the Day After Plan for Gaza. It is literally not more than a page and a half. That is not a plan for what's actually going to be. That's a way to say we have some sort of vague thinking. Israel has pledged that it is not going to reoccupy the Gaza Strip and establish settlements. At the same time, a report came out today that Israel has vastly expanded what's called the Netzarim corridor, that is the area that divides the Gaza Strip from north to south, and has been establishing more permanent outposts in the area. Within Israel's government, the prime minister has promised to not reestablish settlements, yet a lot of ministers in cabinet have said settlements will be reestablished in northern Gaza. All this leads us to believe that very likely there is no actual plan for what Israel is going to do, and especially now with the new administration in the United States, Israel's probably going to buy its time for another couple of months until it negotiates with the U.S. what can it achieve in the Gaza Strip, and we'll go from there.
All right. Well, Professor Burstein, thank you so much for joining us on World Day, and it's always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
For latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.